that you specifically requested be a tame horse because the horse was for your father.
Yes.
That turned out to be a wild horse.
Exactly.
That couldn't be ridden.
No.
And Mr. Hummel says you don't get a refund. You had an opportunity to ride the horse. Must be something wrong with your riding ability.
Probably.
Is that right, sir?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am is better than yep. How long have you been in the horse business, Mr. Hummel?
I'm not really in the horse business. I have a small ranch that we use horses for lots of different things. We hunt and do lots of trail riding on the horses. The horses are ridden by a lot of people, young people, people that can't ride very well.
How many horses do you have?
Right now, I have 6 horses.
And at the time Mr. Holtz bought his horse, how many horses did you have?
7 horses.
And why were you selling?
Well, because I needed some money. It was getting close to Christmas, and I needed some money.
Okay. Did you put an ad in the paper?
I put an ad on a local website.
Okay. Can I see a copy of the ad, please?
Yes. The title says Well Broke Horses.
For sale, well-broke horses. Prices vary. Okay. So you were selling 5 of your horses?
That's correct.
Did you sell all 5?
No.
How many horses did you sell?
Thus far, I've sold 3 of them.
Well, my math isn't that great, as Bert can attest, but if you have 6 horses now and you had 7 horses then and you sold 3...
I picked up a couple more horses, though.
So you bought some more?
Yep.
When did you buy the other horses, sir?
About a week ago.
From where?
From a friend of mine.
Okay. Now, what did you want a horse for, Mr. Hulse?
Some of my friends and I have gone in on some horses. My dad was looking to join our little group and buy another horse to ride. He's totally inexperienced.
How old is your father?
55.
A baby. So he's an inexperienced rider, and you want him to have a
Yes,
easy
and
horse.
a little bit heavier, so we wanted a stout horse.
Tell me what happened when you answered the ad.
I called Greg on the 10th of December around 12 o'clock. Told him I was interested to come out that day and look at some horses. He said he'd have some saddled and ready by 2 o'clock. So Ryan and I went to his ranch, and we said we were looking for a horse that was on the lower end of the $1,000 to $1,500 range. He showed us 2 horses that were in that range. He told us that Angel, the horse we ended up getting, was on the lower end of that range because she didn't have papers.
Where did you get this horse from?
From a buddy in Cleveland, Utah.
When?
Quite some time ago. I can't tell you the exact time. I've had the horse for quite a while.
Well, years. Give me some idea.
Close to a year.
Well, that's not so long, sir.
No.
What's the person's name that you bought the horse from?
Richard.
How much did you pay for the horse?
I paid $900 for the horse.
Now, the other horse that you showed the plaintiff, where did you get that horse from?
Same person.
When?
Same time.
So you bought the 2 horses together?
That's correct.
How much did you pay for the second horse?
The same.
Did you buy any of your other horses from Mr.
Yeah, but what's this have to do with this horse?
I ask the questions, you answer the questions.
Of course I have.
Are any of the other 6 horses that are now in your possession horses that you bought from Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
All of them.
So you bought all your horses from Mr.
Yes, he's a very close friend, and we ride a lot together.
Did you ride the horse, Mr. Hulse?
Yes.
And is your father about your stature?
No.
Is he larger or smaller?
He's heavier and shorter.
So you were satisfied. Now, what happened after you bought the horse?
We paid Greg the money that day. The next morning, around 9 o'clock, Ryan and I went to trailer the horse. And the horse took us about 2 hours to get her in the trailer. She acted like she'd never seen a trailer before. By that time, Greg had already cashed our check, and we tried calling him a few times to let him know the problem. We couldn't get a hold of him.
Well, I don't understand. Didn't you go back
That's
to
not
where the
true.
horse was?
Yes.
Where was he?
He wasn't there.
Was that work?
He gave us permission to go get it. He knew he wasn't going to be there.
So you called him?
Yes.
And what did he say when you called him?
He didn't answer. We finally got the horse in. We cajoled her with some oats and stuff, and then dropped her off at our field. And then Monday, we tried to saddle her. And
Now, when you went to view this horse for the first time on the 10th of December, did you tell Mr. Hummel what you wanted the horse for?
yes.
What did you tell him?
I told him that my dad was going to be making the purchase and that he has no experience, and so we need just a leisure horse that anybody can ride.
Okay. Now, I see that you have a video.
I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
Your Honor, may I make a comment on this video?
Yeah,
while I
tell me
watch
who
it?
you are.
My name's Adam Marriott. I'm one of the riders in the video. Just like to say a few things as we watch it.
Are you a friend of his? Is that what you...
I am, yeah. You see here Ryan right here, he's the rider right now, going up to the horse, and she pins her ears back, which means she's angry, and then obviously you can see she kicks. That could be dangerous. I mean, we're about to put up a beware of horse sign in front of the pasture.
Judge, can I say something, or is it just their turn?
No, it's their turn.
Okay, as we saddle the horse, he has to hold her head really tight or else she'll turn around and bite us. And so we put it on pretty gently, and here she goes, trying to stomp on us and rear up a little bit. So we ride about 10 paces, try to turn her head very gently, and she starts bucking. You see I'm swaying with her just to stay on. And here she goes, she rears up.
Okay, and that was you riding the horse?
That was me riding.
Are you an experienced rider, sir?
I am.
Okay, now it's your turn.
Okay, when they came over to my ranch, we saddled up 2 horses. I had an inexperienced employee of mine get on the horse first, rode the horse around. They got on the horse, him and those 2, and rode off my property away from the herd. If a horse is going to act up, it's going to be during that time period when you pull it away from a herd.
How do you account, sir, for that kind of behavior?
Okay, let me finish. They rode the horse off my property for quite some time. They came back and said, we want this horse.
I understand that that's what you're saying, sir. I understand.
I can get a horse to do that. It looks like they're inexperienced people, and maybe I don't know what they've done to the horse. It's an animal. It's a living thing. It's not a machine. The horse never acted like that prior. I've had little kids on the horse, inexperienced people on the horse, and they rode the horse.
When did you first contact Mr. Hummel and tell him that you were having difficulty with the horse?
3 days. I have my phone log right here showing the cell phone that matches the ad. It's highlighted. 3 days after we purchased the horse. He told us the horse was in heat, that it was away from the herd, it needed to calm down. He kept referring to the horse as a sweetheart. But, I mean, she just progressively got worse. And we gave him a week. I just believed him for a week.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There's something fishy with regard to your story about where you get all your horses and when you bought them.
Why is that fishy?
Because I could tell from your gait, sir. That's what I do for a living. I can tell when somebody's not telling me the whole truth.
And later today,
My daughter was involved in a murder. There was 3 involved in the crime. She was a driver of a getaway car, so she got 18 years.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jeremy Hull says fellow horse owner Greg Hummel sold him a horse that had not been broken.
Okay. When you called him again and said that her behavior hadn't changed, what did he say?
He just was saying, what do you want me to do? What do you want from me? And so I said, I want my money
I want
back.
you to take your horse back.
Yeah.
No.
She's not well broke. He accused me of calling him a liar and wanted me to call back and apologize to him.
Well, he's not telling the truth. I offered him another horse out of the 7. I said, come and bring the horse back.
He offered Rose.
For what? Let me finish. He's had quite a bit of time.
Absolutely.
We sat there and saddled those horses up right in front of him.
I understand that, sir. I'm not calling you a liar.
No, no.
I'm not
Okay,
suggesting that you... Listen to me. I'm not calling you a liar at this moment. I don't believe everything that you're telling me about your friend in Utah with the horses, because I can tell when somebody is not telling me the whole truth. There's something strange about that, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there's something peculiar about it. But I'm not accusing you of doing anything before they arrive. Put your hand down.
I'm sorry.
Don't you notice that I see you?
Yes,
I'm in the
ma'am.
middle of talking.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not accusing you of doing anything, sir. He may accuse you of maybe giving this horse a little something to calm it down while he was there. I didn't say that at all. All I'm suggesting is there's something fishy with regard to your story about where you get all your horses and when you bought them.
Why is that fishy?
Because I could tell from your gait, sir. That's what I do for a living. I've been doing it for 35 years. I can tell when somebody's not telling me the whole truth, Mr. Hummel. And whatever else you did today with regard to your story about where you got the horses from, when you got the horses, what you paid for them, and how long you've had them, something isn't quite right. I don't have to necessarily figure out what that is because it's not particularly relevant to this lawsuit. I understand what you're telling me, that they came, that they saddled up the horses, that they rode off of your property, that the horse behaved reasonably on your property, that they came back the next day. The next day when they came back, they found that there was slight difficulty with the horse, getting the horse into a trailer. But that's a possible problem with most horses. They don't like to go into trailers. It's a confined space. They finally got it in. Practically immediately, they called and said to you, listen, we answered an ad for a well-broken horse. I am an experienced rider of horses, and I can't ride them. And certainly, my father can't ride them. So since you were aware, Mr. Hummel, that this horse was being purchased for a particular purpose, you have two choices. Either you say, listen, let the buyer beware. You buy a horse, you take it as you find it, and you're stuck with it. Or a horse must have a warranty, in this case, that it could be ridden, and it could be ridden by someone who is inexperienced and not a good rider. And clearly, based upon what I saw, that's not a possibility. So you're getting your horse back, Mr. Hummel. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,100, which is what you paid. Is that right?
Yes.
Bring him back his horse. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They rode the horse off my property. Obviously, the guy, maybe his wife said he couldn't have the horse.
He wasn't man enough to deal with the horse and our problems in the first place.
I'm an experienced horseman. I've been through a fire science program.
It's crazy. We have 5 other horses, and they're a dream.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Stewart versus Marshall. Step forward, please.
Electrician Terry Stewart is suing her daughter, 28-year-old nurse's assistant Amy Marshall, for a loan to pay off a bingo hall fine.
Miss Stewart, this is your daughter?
Yes.
You look very much alike. Do you know that?
Yep.
One day you're going to wake up, 10 years from now, you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to say, when did I become my mother? You say your daughter owes you some money for a loan.
Yes.
A loan that you made a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Your daughter says that it was not a loan, it was a Christmas gift. You made Christmas gift to one of your other children, and you take care of one of your other children, so she doesn't understand why you're suing her, right?
Right.
When did you make this loan, and what was it for, Miss Stewart?
I took out a loan for my daughter when she had called me and asked me because she had,
Give me the date.
the date was 2002,
Do you remember what month in 2002?
December.
Tell me, to the best of your recollection, what the telephone conversation was.
She called me and asked me for a loan. For the reason is because she owed a lawyer some money.
What did she owe a lawyer money for?
She had bounced a check for $40. Somehow it just got out of hand, and a lawyer got a hold of the check because it was a bingo hall, and a bingo hall won't hold on to it too long. So they took her to court, and they said that it was supposed to owe them $800. And so she goes, Mom, I'm going to have to go to jail if I don't pay the $800.
So she gave somebody a bad check.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Long story short, it ended up being a bad check, yes.
I like to cut to the chase because I have other things to do today. So your daughter was arrested for bounced check?
I was never arrested.
But you were threatened with arrest unless you made good on this check?
Right.
So you called your mother?
Yes.
And what did you say to your mother when you called her?
I told her I was going to end up going to court for the check, but the lawyer was willing to settle, so I needed the money right away to pay the lawyer.
And how much did you tell her you needed?
I don't remember offhand.
She asked for $1,500 because she needed $800 to pay for the lawyer, and she wanted $700 to help her with the children for Christmas.
And what did you say?
And I said I would co-sign because this started out to be a co-sign thing, but then I couldn't co-sign. I had to take the loan out in my own name. And I had asked her, if I do this, please don't renege on the loan.
So you took out a loan?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
The thing of it is, she helps my sister out every single day. She takes care of her kids. She gives her money. She goes to see her. She was going every week for the first couple years to see her. She drives right by my house.
Your sister's in jail?
Yes.
What is she incarcerated for?
I don't know exactly.
I do. My daughter was involved in a murder,
A robbery?
Yes, a mass armed robbery. And there was 3 involved in the crime. She was a driver of a getaway car, so she got 18 years.
Who takes care of her children?
I do.
How old are her children?
8, 7, and Trinity will be 5. I've had Trinity since she was a day old.
Because my sister didn't want her. Yep. I know.
How old are you?
28.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many?
3.
Are you married?
Yes, I am. To the father of my 2 younger children.
How long have you been married?
Almost 6 years.
So what are you so mad at your mother about? Because she takes care of your sister's 3 children and she goes to visit your sister?
And she goes right by my house to go see her. She doesn't stop. She actually works with my husband. And I've seen her at my husband's work. She never knows so much as a hi. She walks right by me.
Why?
I don't know.
What do you think she's angry about?
This is anger way before this loan. I hadn't seen her for almost 6 years. She wasn't around for any of my kids' births. She wasn't around for my wedding. Wasn't around for my graduation. Nothing.
Where were you?
Where was I? I was told I wasn't allowed to see her by her father. I wasn't allowed to talk to them. She knows this.
Were you raised by your father?
Yes, my father and his wife. But I moved out when I was 20.
Finally, after 7 years, her husband told her that she should look me up, and she did. And she called me, and we started talking.
Okay. Miss Marshall, I read your answer. And what your answer says was these were gifts. Well, clearly you've acknowledged today, even though you may not recognize it, that this was a loan. And what it appears to me is that you're angry because your mother has taken on the burden and the responsibility of your sister's children, and she has neglected you. And so you feel as if you're entitled to this. The law doesn't work that way. Your mother took out a loan because you called and asked her to take out a loan.
Right.
You paid her back some of it.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, I did.
So it's unfortunate for your mother that she's had to take on the responsibility of raising 3 children until they're grown.
May I stop? I also have an 8-year-old son of my own.
So now I have 4 children.
Yes.
Who helps you take care of the
My
children?
mother does.
Your mother?
Yes, my mother.
How much do you owe your mother?
I made 4 payments. That was $400. And I gave her my big screen TV. She gave me $300 cash for it, and $500 was supposed to be towards that loan. So that's $900 towards the loan that was paid.
No, the $500 to begin with was the first time she got $500 from me for my taxes. So I gave her $500, and then when they were selling the great big screen TV, I said, I'll give you $300 because I knew they needed some money, but you still owe me the $500 towards the taxes that you borrowed from me. So this will set it straight.
Does that sound familiar?
No. It was supposed to go towards that loan.
Well, you people have to keep better records. How many payments did your daughter make to you in cash for this loan? I'm not talking about television. I'm not talking about anything else. How much?
$800 in cash she paid towards that loan.
Okay, good. You don't see her children.
She wouldn't let me see my grandchildren.
Why don't you stop by her house when you go to visit your daughter?
I didn't know where she lived. Somebody else had to tell me where she lived.
You have any objection to your mother stopping by and seeing the children?
No, I don't. I encourage it. I want to see my nieces, too.
We can do that.
Well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that on Sunday?
That's when she usually goes to see my sister.
Why don't you do that on Sunday?
I don't.
What time do you go to visit your daughter?
I leave about 10 o'clock in the morning.
And what time do you get back?
About 9 o'clock at night.
That's a long day.
I take my mom to see her handicapped brother, which my mom is handicapped, so I take her when I go to see my daughter so my mom can see her brother.
Oh, my goodness. Why don't you make time on the weekend?
Yes.
To go to see your daughter with her 3 nieces who she would like to see, visit your grandchildren, spend an hour.
I can do that. I miss my grandchildren. I can do that.
And I miss my mother. You know, I actually, the day before I got these papers, I actually called her to reconcile.
She did.
You know, and I don't know why I always have to be the one that calls her.
Well, you shouldn't be.
I shouldn't.
All right, let's make arrangements to do it on Sunday.
We can do that.
Okay? Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $700. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I owed her the money, and I knew I did. I think she did it fair.
She was a little jealous of her sister because I am taking care of her children.
Maybe I'm a little jealous of my sister, all the attention she's getting.
I kind of figured that. I just didn't really acknowledge. I knew something was going on.
She's in jail. I mean, it's not the good attention, but I guess it's attention.
She expects a little bit more out of me.
Mrs. Bishop, you and your family were renters in a 4-unit complex, according to what I read in your complaint. The other 3 apartments or condos were occupied by owners.
Right.
And it is your claim that the defendants did several things. First, they told untruths to the cooperative association and therefore your landlord.
Yes.
Causing you to be evicted.
Yes.
And next, you allege that the defendants, one or both of them, put needles in your laundry which got into your baby's pajamas, which caused injury to the baby.
But...
Shh, shh. And you want to be compensated.
Yes, ma'am.
I assume that they did not put any needles in your laundry on purpose. If needles got into the laundry because Mrs. Schultz is a diabetic,
Yes.
does use needles.
No.
No.
Doesn't use needles?
No.
Okay, interesting. And in addition, that whatever statements they made to the landlord, your landlord, were true, and if you were evicted, it was because of your own conduct. That's their defense. I just want to check something. Well, I'm reading your answer, Mr. Schultz, and your answer says, my wife is diabetic, and when the plaintiff's husband brought the lancets to me...
There's a difference between lancets and needles.
Oh, okay, lancets.
Okay, yes.
So I used the wrong word.
Used
Lancets.
Lancets.
When plaintiff's husband brought lancets to me, he said he found them in the washer, My wife is diabetic, but they did not look like the lancets my wife used. So we're using a different term.
Right,
Needles,
right. Well, there is
lancets.
a difference between lancets and needles.
Okay. When did you move in, Mrs. Bishop, with your family?
August of '03.
And how many members were there in your family?
3, myself, my husband, and my baby.
How old is your baby?
1 year and 4 months.
Did you have trouble with Mr. and Mrs. Schultz or any of the other neighbors when you moved in?
Just the Schultz. No, the other neighbors were very kind and friendly, normal neighbors.
What happened with Mr. and Mrs. Schultz?
I think the first month or two was fine. We were friends.
Well, actually, it was...
I didn't ask you anything yet.
Mr. Schultz was very kind and helpful, showing us where the things were, telling us how things ran around there, like he was the
That was
landlord.
the first month or two?
First month or two. I understood from the neighbor in number 2, Tammy.
Don't tell me anything that a neighbor told you.
Okay, I understood she needed a kidney. So I went up and offered her a kidney and asked her what blood type she was. She said she was blood type AB. And we
But I'm
talked about
not.
it.
So, it's good.
To my best recollection. Anyways.
Go ahead.
So, just things started happening where the laundry problems. They parked in a, his truck is very big, it's a Bronco, and it's blocked our space. When we moved in, we asked him several times to please move it. We can't get our car in the garage. Here's a violation that was written on my car because his car was parked in my space, so I had to scoot my car over the line. So I was ticketed because they called on me after we asked them to move the car and complained to the landlord.
Mr. Schultz, did you and the plaintiff and or her husband ever have a conversation with... Could you stand up and take your hand off your hip?
I'm sorry.
Did you and the plaintiff or her husband ever have a conversation with regard to your truck encroaching on their parking space?
No, not...
Never.
No,
Never.
no.
Your Honor?
No.
And actually...
However, excuse me, Your Honor, however, though,
parking.
I did quite a few times ask them if they could move their car over because I couldn't get into my car, and she is...
Now, just one second.
Okay.
So there was a problem.
There was a problem.
Now, when there was a problem, it was because their car was parked too close to the line, yet their car was parked within their lines. But you have a very large car, and in order for you to get in and out of your spot, you wanted them to move their car further over.
To the other line.
I understand. Your wife is answering the question, sir. I mean, you know, I understand. She understands what I'm saying. You may want to give me a lot of baloney, but I'm not going to tolerate it. You asked them to move their car to the other side because you have a very large car and it was difficult for you to get in and out of your car. Is that a fair statement?
That would be a fair statement.
That's a fair statement. Okay. And what I assume happened is you parked it as close to the line as you possibly could. Is that what you're telling me?
Not necessarily, but
Not necessarily. Let me see the pictures. I'm 10 steps ahead of you, sir.
There's a picture
I'm
of his
10 steps
Bronco,
ahead of you.
And here's the rules and regulations.
You know, fortunately, we all come to our jobs, Mr. Schultz, with a life's experience.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, well, in this case, you may not be. Let's get to the rest of the complaints that were made, because that's what you're alleging. Let's get there, and let's get there fast.
Okay.
And then we'll get to the lancets.
Okay.
Your Honor?
What?
May I ask my
May
witness
I-
to come up and explain?
Absolutely. Who are you?
I'm her husband, Brett Bishop.
Okay, do you have the complaints?
No, we do not have the complaints.
Well, then how am I supposed to adjudicate that
we
part of
were
your
not
claim?
able to get them from our landlord in time.
Well, then, yeah, I have to strike that part of your claim.
Okay, then I have nothing in that regard.
Good, fine. And let's get to the needles incident.
I went out to get the baby's laundry out of the dryer. And
When was this?
January 29th. And found needles in the dryer, and I came back in the house and called my husband, and he told me that they might be hers because she's diabetic.
Okay. Do you have any of them with you?
Yes.
And this was before you put any clothes on the baby?
No.
What do you mean, no?
Similar of what the needles look like.
You see, what you state in your complaint is that your baby was uncomfortable, and the next morning you found needles in her pajamas. Then you went down to the laundry and you found needles. Now you tell me that on the 29th of January, you went down to the dryer and found needles in the dryer.
I got the needles out of the dryer, and I came back into the house and called the police.
Yes.
My husband came home at the same time,
Yes?
and he can pick it up from there.
The police officer went and spoke with Mrs. Schultz.
Listen to me. Were you there when the police officer spoke to Mrs. Schultz?
I was not in his presence. He spoke to her on her balcony. We waited in the house. He came down and told us what she said.
That's hearsay. I'll look at a police report if you have it.
Yeah, we have a police report. In that police report, she admits that the needles were hers.
Shh.
Sorry.
Now, according to the police report, I'm just telling you what the police report says.
Okay.
It says that you advised the police that the needles were left in your clothing by accident. I got it. What's next?
We have photographs of the needle, and we did not know that where the needle came from, where the scratches came from originally.
I don't know what scratches you're talking about, Matt. I have no clue as to what scratches you're talking about.
We found a needle later in my baby's diaper. After we phoned the police, we discovered that the scratches that were on her that were not on their.
I have no idea what you're talking about, madam. I asked you, tell me about the incident involving the needles.
Okay.
And you told me on the 29th of January you found needles in the laundry. And now you're talking to me about scratches, and I have no clue as to what you're talking about.
On the 28th night, I put my baby to bed. In the morning when she woke up, my husband.
It was on the 9th.
What are you telling me?
On the 9th, we put our baby to bed. I usually put the baby to bed, and she had no scratches to her labia area. She was very fussy that night. We thought she was teething. The next morning when I got up to take her to the nanny, I noticed when I was changing her, she had a dirty diaper, so I wiped her up, and I noticed that there were scratches to her vagina area. We have pictures.
What kind of diapers do you use?
Pampers.
Well, how could she have scratches to her vaginal area?
That's where we're getting at, is the whole reason why we're here is the needles that this lady put in our laundry somehow got into our baby's diaper, scratched up her labia. We have pictures to document that. We have pictures of the needles and the emergency room doctor.
We dug through the diaper pail.
Saw those.
We have a diaper pail we keep the diapers in, and after discussing with the officer and finding out the needles 2 weeks later that she has got scratched from, we assumed we better look through the old diapers that we keep in the pail, which we have pictures of the diaper pail and the needle in the dirty diaper. So that's how we didn't know where the scratches came from.
But you don't put diapers in the wash.
Shh. Push it.
So we put 2 and 2 together and took her to the emergency room, and they wrote the report that needles stick to the labia. And they did the HIV test on her, hepatitis testing. And
So what you're telling me is, I mean, I don't know what these pictures show, madam. You're showing me a picture of a dirty diaper with a blue needle in it. Is that what you're showing me you found?
Yes.
I don't believe you. I don't believe that 2 weeks later you kept dirty diapers in a pail.
The baby goes to the nanny Monday through Friday.
Let me explain
because I'm
something to you, madam. I do not believe that you kept dirty diapers in a pail from January 9th to January 30th. I don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it ain't true.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
I assume that you have a busy life. I want to know why you're suing him over swimsuit and shoes. I'm just curious. Yet you took time out to file a lawsuit about your swimsuit and shoes.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Renee Bishop says her former condo neighbors, Michelle and Perry Schultz, put needles into a laundry dryer, causing injury to her baby. Renee also claims the Schultzes lied to the landlord and got her evicted.
I believe that you probably found a couple of her needles in the dryer. That's a possibility. And maybe you figured you could parlay that into something else, but I do not believe. And I'm not crazy about their attitude, especially his. I'm not sure about hers yet, but especially his. But if you think you're going to parlay that into a monetary award, you are wrong, because I do not believe this evidence, which is a 2-week-old diaper that you kept in a pail in her room and happened to open it up and found within the diaper that your husband said he changed on the 9th of January, a blue needle that he overlooked. I don't buy it.
It was
My problem is that 3 weeks later, or 2.5 weeks later, when you found this, you took your child to the emergency room?
Mm-hmm.
What date did you take the child to the emergency room?
The 29th.
29th. So what you're telling me is you didn't see the problem on the 9th.
Yes, we did.
Well, show me what you did.
We took her to my doctor for shots. 2 days later, she had a date for shots. There's red marks on the buttocks.
Let me see. Let me see. 2 days later, let me see what the report says. Well infant.
Red marks on
Red
buttock.
mark on buttock. That's not what your husband just told me. Your husband told me that she had needle punctures on her labia. Listen, what do you think? I was born yesterday. Your case is dismissed. They may have not been good neighbors, and they may have done a lot of things that were nasty to you, but you're not going to parlay that. My only problem is you did take the child 2.5 weeks later to an emergency room where somebody found a needle prick on the child. My question is, how did it get there 2.5 weeks later when it wasn't on the doctor's report 2 days after what you allege is the incident?
Because
that causes me a great deal of concern. Not from them, but from you. Your case is dismissed.
Your Honor,
Step out.
thank you, Your Honor.
Out. Thank you.
I didn't put the lancets in the washer or the dryer.
They just started turning psycho and messing with our cars, cutting our vehicles up, all kinds of stuff.
We've lived there 8 years, never had a problem with anybody until they moved in.
I think because they're just really jealous. Their kid's autistic, unfortunately.
So does that mean I'm jealous of every normal child in this world? I don't think so.
He used to tell us all the time, oh, you're so lucky to have a healthy baby. She's so beautiful. She's so this, she's so that. And I think there was a fine line between jealousy and hatred.
That's just a farce. I mean, they're just reaching, you know. Desperate people will do desperate things, you know, and they're desperate.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McCullough versus Nelson's Nautilus. Step forward, please.
Student Renee McCullough is suing the owners of her gym, Preston Nelson and John Ashey, for breaking into her locker and selling her belongings. The men say Renee's locker dues were 6 months delinquent.
Miss McCullough, you belong to the defendant's gym, according to your complaint, for about 9 years.
That's correct.
And then there came a time recently that you stopped going, about a year ago. And it is your claim that they clipped the lock off your locker after several months and got rid of your stuff. You want them to pay you $600 for what you claim was in the locker. When did you first rent your locker?
The first time I rented it was for a year. It was in November of 2001.
And how much was the rental on the locker for that year?
I paid $100. He gave me a break. I paid a year in advance.
Is that right?
That sounds correct.
Okay, $100 for the year. That was in 2001.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you pay in 2002? Is not an answer.
No.
Why not?
Because it was my understanding when I paid for my year in advance that it would be included in my automatic payment out of my bank, and in the event that it wasn't, that Preston would let me know.
Did you have that conversation with her?
I couldn't. I would say yes, I did. We could not find any paperwork to show that, and so I don't know where it all fell short, but I have no paperwork that would show that. Typically, it was a prepaid year only.
Okay. When did you stop going to the gym at all?
At approximately middle of 2002.
And when did you go back?
The end of July of 2003.
And when you went back in July of 2003, you found your locker opened?
Exactly.
Okay, well, you know, that's well over a year ago. What have you done in the last year?
After I found out my lock had been cut off, I spoke to Mr. Ashby, and he said he had to speak to his wife to find out where my belongings were. He thought that they still had them on the premises. At that time, I found out that no, they were no longer there. I left a note with Mr. Ashby concerning, you know, I had quite a bit of belongings in that locker, and that if they would pay me for my swimsuit and my shoes, I would go away.
Do you work? I assume you do.
I did previous to this, yes.
What are you doing now?
I'm going back to school.
How do you support yourself?
Through my husband.
Oh, okay. So your family supports itself?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're going back to school. What I want to know is, I assume that you have a busy life. I want to know why you're suing him over swimsuit and shoes. I'm just curious. You took time out to file a lawsuit about your swimsuit and shoes.
It's the principle of the thing. I expect that if they run a business, that they need to comply with the laws that regulate the renting of areas.
Well, but the truth of the matter is, Ms. McCullough, from what you tell me, you didn't go back to the gym for almost a year. And during that period of time, the locker was really not paid for. You assumed that it was going to be paid for. You assumed that they would notify you in the event that it wasn't paid for. Have you lived in the same place
yes.
all the time? Well, what I don't understand, Mr. Nelson, quite frankly, is why couldn't you just send her a note? Drop her a note and say, listen, we're going to empty out your locker because it hasn't been paid for. and it has to be paid for. You know, you better come and get it within the next 2 weeks.
Right. That really, a lot of the specifics, when Johnny came on board, the records were not well kept. We didn't have an automatic payment system in place for lockers. That was something that was discussed, but primarily it's a membership, tanning, health club.
Okay. So what Miss McCullough was asking for initially was $160. Is that right?
That's what I have, yes.
Right. That's what she said here. Originally, I told him, you've just paid me $160 for my swimsuit and sneakers. That would be fine. And she's here just for the principle of it, right?
Correct.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $160. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was fair. It was more making them accountable for what they should have stood up to the plate with before.
At the time that we cleaned the lockers out, we didn't find anything of real value in any of the lockers that we cleaned out. Certainly nothing that would have merited $160 in value.
I think if you own a business and you run a business, that you should comply with the laws.
Judy.
Folks, have seats.
Mr. Berger, you and the defendant used to be married. You have 2 children together. You've been divorced, according to your complaint, for 18 years.
Yes, ma'am.
You say that your former wife owes you $302.44, which you claim you overpaid in child support for one of your children who graduated from high school, and the money was taken out of your pay.
Yes, ma'am.
You want her to give you back that money.
Yes, ma'am.
And your former wife says that she used that money for your daughter's graduation, the expenses for her graduation, and get over it. Which, quite frankly, considering everything in this world, would be my response to you, too, were you my ex-husband. But since we're not there, I'm going to find out whether there is any merit to your claim, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You have how many children?
4.
How old are they?
The youngest is 14. The oldest is 24.
Okay, and with the defendant, you have an 18-year-old?
Yes, ma'am.
And?
22-year-old.
So it's only your 18-year-old daughter that we have issue with. Your younger children still live with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how much child support were you paying when both children were living with your former wife?
When I was paying for both of them, at the end, it was $300 a week, I think it was.
$300 a week or $300 a month?
Sometimes support was ordered per month. Sometimes it was ordered per week.
You know?
Yes, ma'am. It was $760.
A month?
Yes, ma'am. This is the documentation of all the, since it's been going through child support enforcement, of how much he's been paying.
Did you ever pay, sir, $1,500 a month for support?
$1,500 a month? No,
yeah.
ma'am.
So when you told me $300, that you were talking about $300 per month, not per week.
Yes, ma'am.
Per month?
It's been, sometimes support was ordered per week.
I understand that,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
when it was ordered per week, it was never $300 a week.
No, ma'am.
Well, then you made a mistake.
If I said that, then yes, I did.
Yes, you made a mistake. It was never $300 a week. Maybe it was $300 a month.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to find out.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just wanted to find out whether you've been an overindulgent parent.
I've always paid what the court ordered me to pay.
I understand that you've always paid what the court ordered you to pay, sir. I also understand that you've had 2 more children and you've been able to at least contribute to their support also, and you have another family, which is really my question. Your daughter graduated from high school. They took out a payment after she graduated from high school of $300, and you want the money back.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain it to me.
The support was ordered to cease on June the 14th. They took out the full month of June, and I'm just asking for the other 2 weeks that shouldn't have been taken out.
Did you ask your former wife about it?
Yes, ma'am. I sent her.
And what did she say to you?
She said no.
Did she say anything about graduation expenses?
No, ma'am, she did not.
If she said something to you about graduation expenses, you know, the additional money that she had for graduation, for ring, for gown, for whatever. Gown, ring?
Shoes, everything.
Would you have said, sure, it's a one-shot deal?
We could have discussed it, yes, ma'am.
So why didn't you tell her?
I didn't tell him because every time I've tried to explain him, all I get back are nasty letters, and I really just didn't think he would do anything. I mean, he hadn't laid eyes on her in 2 years. So I didn't think he would do anything else.
Judge,
Yes.
I've done extra. I bought both of the children a car. That's doing something extra.
That's true.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right, but that wasn't within the last 2 years, and I said 2 years he hasn't laid eyes
Well,
on
what
me.
happened 2 years ago, Mr. Berger?
I got tired. I mean, I never received phone calls from him. You know, she's changed her phone number. I have tried to call, but the phone number has been changed. I don't know when. It might have been recently. I don't know. I just basically give up.
That's too bad.
Yes, ma'am.
Did your father buy you a car?
He did.
Okay. Tell me your name.
Stacy Stack.
Stacy. When did he buy you a car?
2.5 years ago.
Did you thank him?
I did.
You still using the car?
No, ma'am.
What happened to it?
We went to go get it inspected, and the family friend that inspected it said that it wasn't good. It was rusted underneath and that it could break down at any time. So we bought a new car.
How long did you use it for?
I used it for about 6 months.
Okay. So before 2 years ago, you had contact with your dad?
Not a lot. I called him, the last time that I've talked to him or seen him was I called him so I can go up there and see him, and then he said okay, and then the day of, or the day before, he came by and said, no, we have to go somewhere else. And they left, and I haven't talked to him or seen him since then.
That sound familiar?
I think something came up that time. Yes, ma'am.
Can't come up.
Ma'am?
Nothing can come up. Nothing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Mr. Berger, you're going to get your $302 back.
Yes, ma'am.
You might want to buy something nice for your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember, you have 4 children.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And later today,
I was told by the 6-year-old that the boyfriend had picked him up by his ears and dropped him to the floor. And so I called DHS because if he'd do this, he might do something worse.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Hayward Berger claims ex-wife Cynthia Berger owes for the return of child support. Hayward says he overpaid by $300.
All very sad. There really is no defense to it. Money was supposed to stop, correct?
According to the papers, yes. When we went to court, before we go in, child support enforcement speaks to me, and they told me that it would continue to the end of the month. He was still obligated to the end of the month. I said, are you sure? Yes, he's obligated to the end of the month. I said, okay. We went in, and the judge said he would stop because he wanted it stopped on her graduation day. And I called child support enforcement again, told them, you know, and they said, no, he's still obligated till the end of the month.
Judge,
so I just, you know.
You took it. The judge makes the order, and the judge said it's supposed to stop on the 14th. How old are you?
18.
When were you 18?
March 13th.
And the overpayment was $302?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Berger?
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to get your $302 back.
Yes, ma'am.
You might want to buy something nice for your daughter, but you're entitled to it back.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember, you have 4 children.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Good. That's all. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $302.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It seems like when it counts in front of the judge or whatever, she comes off as a good guy and I come off as a bad guy.
Every time he's mad at me, he hasn't seen the children. He didn't take the children. He doesn't buy them presents, and he says it's because of me.
My daughter going by my ex-wife's maiden name shows some of what's been going on, the brainwashing for the kids.
I would have liked him to start seeing us when we were little so we'd get to know him, but we're older now and we know what happened, so.
There's many, many, many trips I've made. It's a 2.5-hour drive from my house to their house to pick the children up.
He's never tried. He cares more about the money than myself and my brother.
I would like to have a relationship with my kids in Richmond and try to mend fences if possible.
Maybe it's hopefully the last thing I see of him. I haven't seen him in 2 years and it really doesn't bother me any.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Isbell versus Espinoza. Step forward, please.
Homemaker Holly Isbell is suing her former friend, 25-year-old nurse's assistant Michelle Espinoza, for unpaid babysitting fees and miscellaneous expenses. Holly says she cared for Michelle's kids while she was in the hospital.
Ms. Isbell, according to your complaint, the defendant was hospitalized.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were contacted to see if you could fill in while she was hospitalized, which was on an emergency basis, to watch her 5 children?
Yes, ma'am.
You agreed to watch her children, and you want to be reimbursed for babysitting services as well as miscellaneous expenses for the children while they were in your care.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Espinoza says the two of you were friends. You used to watch each other's children all the time. You filled in for each other. There was never an agreement to pay you for babysitting services, and she doesn't owe you anything. In addition to the babysitting services, it is your claim that the defendant also has embarked on various acts of harassment, and
Yes,
you want
ma'am.
to be compensated for that. How long have the two of you been friends?
Probably for about a year and a half, almost to 2 years.
And you have children?
Yes, I do. I have 3.
How old are your children?
Mine are 12, 6, and 4.
And how old are Miss Espinoza's children?
6, 3, almost 2. She has 2 twins. And then the baby is almost 8 months.
And were there times when the two of you exchanged babysitting services?
I remember one time that she's watched my children, yes.
And was there any payment?
No, there wasn't.
Any other times that you watched her children?
There was payment, yes, ma'am.
Now, when did you go into the hospital?
On the 21st of April.
For what?
For kidney stones.
When did you receive a call, Miss Isbell, that there was need for your service?
I received a call from one of her friends on March 21st. She said that Michelle told her to call me because she needed somebody to watch the kids for a couple of days, that she was going to go in the hospital. And I called the hospital, and they said that she had already been admitted. So they gave me her room number, and she was in pain. She said that they were already giving her pain medicine, and that her fever was really high, and that they didn't know what was really wrong with her at the time, and that it was only going to be for a couple of days. I agreed to watch them for a couple of days.
Fine.
And in that agreement, I said the same arrangement goes as prior. And
No,
she
no,
agreed.
Miss Isbell, I don't think you said that to her. I think you're a nice lady, and I think that if somebody is saying to you, I'm in the hospital and I have a very high fever and I'm in a lot of pain, I don't think that a nice lady like you would say, well, I'll take care of the children for a couple of days, but you know it's going to be on the same payment arrangement that we had before. I don't think you would say that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
So the children were dropped off at your house, and then what happened?
They were dropped off, and what was brought in was a gallon of milk and a few diapers and about a half of baby formula, about this big. And then when I called her at the hospital, because I didn't know how to reach her boyfriend, I said, look, you know, the kids are running out of diapers again.
When did you call her?
The very next day. And she said that she was fixing to have tests, and that she would get a hold of her boyfriend, and that she would bring all the stuff that was needed. Well,
Not she.
Not she, but the boyfriend. Well, he brought over a bag of potato chips, about 7 cans of Cokes, and that was it. And then I noticed bruisings on some of the kids, and just different things that were happening. And the 3-year-old had bruisings on his ears. And then when I called to ask Michelle about that, she said that she hadn't noticed anything about that. And then I was told by the 6-year-old and by the 3-year-old that the boyfriend had picked him up as a punishment by his ears and dropped him to the floor. And so I called DHS because I was scared that if he'd do this, he might do something worse.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Holly Isbell says former friend Michelle Espinoza owes for unpaid babysitting fees. Michelle says there was never an agreement to pay.
Where was the boyfriend for the 4 days?
He works.
What kind of work does he do?
He's a cook.
And did you give her any money for the 4 days that she watched the children? Just not for payment, but for the food that they ate. You know, if it costs her an extra $150 for the 4 days,
When
that the
she-
children are with you. Let me finish. If it cost you an extra $150, don't you think that it was your responsibility, your boyfriend's responsibility to see to it that she had what she needed for the children?
When I offered her for money or to bring groceries over there, because I can't just give her my food stamp card because I'd get in trouble.
I'm not asking you to give her your food stamp card. Your boyfriend works. I assume that he works for money, not food stamps. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how much money did he give her?
None that I know of.
Right. Well, that's not fair.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I'm the one that packed everything for her kids.
Well, then come up and tell me what you packed.
All
Tell me
right.
your name.
And I called her in the beginning.
Tell me your name.
Jessica Flores.
All right, Miss Flores, what did you bring over for the children?
I packed 4 changes of clothes, 3 sleeping clothes.
I'm not talking about clothes.
Okay.
Let's not talk about clothes.
I
She
gave
didn't
her
buy any clothes.
24 diapers for the
24
baby.
diapers?
For the baby. And the twins are in diapers. I gave her 50 for the twins. And when I did the milk, Michelle had the big count on my ounces, but it's not the 12 ounce. It's like a 32 ounce, and it was brand new. It wasn't even opened. I put that in with the Pampers and a gallon of milk because Michelle told me that's all she wanted.
Is that what she brought over to you?
No, ma'am.
What
It
did
was
she bring
not.
over?
She brought over, now the can size is right, but it was half full. And she did not pack 50 diapers for the twins. It was more like 12.
Do you have a receipt for items that you bought for the children during that time?
I do not, because I only paid once to buy just a really cheap pack of diapers for the twins.
So how much did you pay?
Food was $169.41 because I had to replace everything, you know, because they ate a lot.
Okay,
they didn't get to go to
$169.41 for 4 days for 5 children. What else?
And I'm asking for replacement of the mattress or replacement of the bed because her oldest son had wet on the bed for 2 nights and hid it.
Well, how old is he?
He's 6.
Okay. Do you think that it's possible that his mother is in the hospital and he's taken out of his familiar surroundings and he's taken to your house, that he's a little bit agitated, so you're blaming a 6-year-old because he tried to hide the fact that he had had an accident in the bed? Miss Isbell, get it together. And tell me about the harassment.
She would call and she would leave messages on my phone. And I have one tape.
I'd like to hear it.
Holly, I don't appreciate you going to a missionary or compassion or wherever and using my name to get my children diapers, and when you tell me you paid for them, what kind of Christian person are you? Now, I'm sick of you trying to run around this town and ruin my name or giving me bad trouble. You keep on and you will have trouble yourself, Holly. Now, I'm just a little bit sick and tired of this.
All right, so she's telling you she's angry because you've been saying bad things about her. Go ahead.
But
it's not harassment.
Well, this was because 2 days after, DHS was knocking on my door. And there's another case involving me and my daughter that she knows about. It involves a sexual act that happened to someone, and she knew about it. And
so you think that she called Children's Services to report on you?
I really believe that.
Okay, she may have, but you can't prove it. So far, I think that she has to reimburse you for your expenses with regard to taking care of her children, because I think that that's the right thing to do. And I think that there was probably an implied agreement to take care of your children's necessaries. Now, how much do you think is appropriate to reimburse Miss Isbell for the service that she provided in watching your children for 4 days?
I don't know what she purchased on my children. She went to the Compassion Outreach for diapers that she said she purchased herself.
No, she's not asking for diapers. She's not asking for diapers at all. She spent $169.41. That's what she says she spent
If she
for the
spent
children.
that, why didn't she ask me for groceries when I asked her to go get them?
Oh, I want you to turn around and look at her. Turn around and look at her. Miss Espinoza, I want you to say the following words. Thank you for taking care of my children when I couldn't and my boyfriend couldn't.
Thank you for taking care of my children when I couldn't and my boyfriend couldn't.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $169.41. Thank you.
What is our excuse? You may step out.
Her boyfriend is very abusive to her.
She has so much hate and anger against my boyfriend. That's what it is.
Got a problem. She's the one who told me, and she showed me bruises before.
We're no longer friends, that's for sure.
I didn't call it on her. I called on her boyfriend.
Probably because he's Mexican. I don't know.
I have nothing against him. I have nothing against her. You know, that's